Ever worry about your mental health? Did you take step to protect it, to like for the long run, to make sure you have the mental strength to go on?
Yes.
For those who don't know, Lex Fridman is on his podcast here and interviews celebrities and famous people on his podcast. And in this video, it's a clip with Mr. Beast, one of the most famous YouTubers worldwide. This section of the video will ask Mr. Beast about his mental health. And so I'm going to analyze how Mr. Beast responds, and also Lex Fridman gives his perspective as well. And I'll try to see if there's any psychological principles that relate to what they talk about.
Weirdly enough, the best thing for my mental health was giving into my innate nature to work.
So here Mr. Beast talks about his innate ability to work, or his innate drive to work. And so this reminds me of a psychological principle known as the id. If you look at this diagram, you can see there's the id, there's the ego, and there's the superego. And the id is something like, I want this now. Oftentimes it can be referred to like hunger, sleep, sometimes sexual desires. For Mr. Beast, sometimes he really just wants to work. Like he wants to do that now, and he sort of gives in to that desire. Although he is probably an exception for most people. I mean, he's 24, he's got a lot of energy, he's got a lot of probably thinking, a lot of creative energy. This is gonna be a little bit different than someone who's like 15, someone who's 60. They may not have that same drives. Their drives might be a little bit different. He's also been cultivating this innate desire for several years. It's not something that he just kind of jumped into right away. It's something that's been developing over time. I recall from his previous videos, he's been doing this since he was 11. So that's like 10, 13 years of pretty consistently working on his YouTube and seeing it blossom into hundreds of millions of subscribers, billions of views. And so it's probably that innate ability is something that's really kind of just grew over time as he's grown to be a successful YouTuber.
And the most depressed I get is when I try to restrict it and like, I don't work weekends or I don't work this day.
So basically he's providing the example that some people may try to limit the amount they work or set boundaries on themselves. And for many people, if they don't really love what they do, if they don't have as an intense desire as Mr. Beast does, then yeah, that can be helpful. And also Mr. Beast, he's not really married, he's not raising kids. He doesn't have some of the same obligations, responsibilities that some other people may have. So he may not have to set those limits at this point in his life, but later on, I'm sure it's, if he does have a family, things like that, they'll be probably more important to set limits.
What's best for me is just to work when I feel like working, and then just not work when I don't.
So again, it seems like he's really just listening to his emotions and what he feels, and like his intuition is telling him, and that's essentially like the id playing a role. But what he's doing is also like a good deed, and so that's like the superego, like is what he's doing right. And he really believes, as you'll see later on in the video, that he really is passionate about YouTube. He thinks he's doing well for the community, for others, entertainment purposes, or whatever it is. And so that is also kind of reinforcing like, yeah, this is good, keep doing it, keep working at it.
And just have no constraints, because there are just some nights where I don't want to sleep, and for whatever reason I feel compelled to go all night. Whatever, like just do it, do whatever you want is what I tell my like working brain, and I just give into it, and I feel that's where I feel the happiest. And then it's typically like, when I'm really in the grind mode, it'll be like 7 or 8 days, just nonstop going, and then it's like,
Mr. Beast is sort of giving that impression where he really dedicates a lot for his work, and he can go a week, maybe even longer than a week, really just working hard at it, maybe not needing much sleep. He says he's feeling happy too, like he's his happiest. Actually, these are some of the symptoms that can be seen in like bipolar disorder. And I'm not saying he's bipolar disorder. No, I'm not making that evaluation. That's a whole another thing. But it is interesting that some people who do suffer from bipolar disorder do tend to get more creative on these highs, where they have a lot of energy, don't need as much sleep, they have an elevated mood. And as a caveat, people who say maybe they need hospitalization from it, or maybe it really impacting their relationships with others, or maybe their work suffers because they're actually not thinking right and they're thinking off. They actually won't take medications oftentimes because it calms them down. It dampens the creative ability. Actually, it's thought that, may his soul rest in peace, Robin Williams, a famous actor, committed suicide, unfortunately, did actually suffer from bipolar disorder and was on medications, but also as part of that creativity, which maybe helped him to be a good actor.
I'll realize like, oh, I need some recharge time, and then go fucking binge a season of anime.
Binging a season of anime probably is not recommended by your typical mental health specialist. Maybe it works for Mr. Beast, but for the most part, maybe not the healthiest coping strategy. Maybe doing something like going for a walk, eating healthy, exercising, playing sports, picking up a hobby. Those are a little bit healthier alternatives probably, but what am I to say? He's doing pretty well so far.
Yeah, but
listen to your,
but that's the thing. Like,
body.
People will tell you, don't work weekends, or don't do this, or don't work past this, or blah blah. Give you all these constraints. But for me, and it's unconventional, I just give into it.
As Mr. Beast admits, it is unconventional. It's not the typical pattern, but probably to be so successful or to reach all the milestones and goals that he has had in YouTube, he does have to stand out or did have to do something differently. And so he's found a system that works. And again, it seems like his id is aligned with his superego, and it's aligned with his ego, and all those things are sort of in line together, which helps him in this process of being a YouTuber.
I think there's something really to be said for that. I try to surround myself with people that, like, when I pull an all-nighter, they don't go like, you should get more sleep.
So I'll just take a moment here to talk about what Lex Fridman is talking about. So he says when he spends an all-nighter, sometimes people will tell him to, don't do that, or you need sleep for your health. And so yes, there are some exceptions to the rule, but going back to this diagram of the id, the ego, the superego, basically it's like people sending him messages, like the superego trying to kind of influence him, like, oh, that's not right, you can't be doing that. And a lot of times as kids growing up, they may get wrong messages from their parents, from aunt, uncle, from people that are like caretaking them, and they later on in life say they always have this negative voice. So they have these patterns which they say they learned from their parents, from the tendencies. And so yeah, sometimes people get these messages from other people, and it does affect the mind here. And so sometimes people do have to like deal with that conflict and like handle it in a healthy way. You got to sort of use your innate abilities, like your id. You got to understand your ego, like some things that you know what's right, what skills you have, those things. And then your superego is like what's right and versus wrong. It's more of like a moral, spiritual, higher meaning of life and understanding of the world around.
There's a reason I pulled that all-nighter. Like, if I'm really passionate about something, they basically encourage it. Because I have no problem getting sleep and getting rest. What I need in my life is people that encourage you to kind of keep going.
So basically it's just saying, as a podcaster or a YouTuber, Lex Fridman, he wants people to support him, encourage him, validate him, and
keep going with the stuff you're passionate about.
Normal people, they don't want that life, and they probably shouldn't. It's not good for you.
So Mr. B says it's not good for you. He's kind of right. These guys are exceptions. Typically, the normal adult needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're younger, you typically can function on a little bit more than that. If you're older, you typically need a little less sleep. There's of course some exceptions, some variations to this rule. But sleep can be important for one's thinking process, one's emotions, their mental and physical health.
But yeah, if you hang around people, like, just whatever, different people, you're going to feel crazy and it's going to wear on you. Whereas if you're around similar people, it's so much easier. Like, if I started weightlifting more, and like one thing that's helped is just having jacked people around me. They naturally just eat healthier. They do. Like, they naturally just have freaking grilled chicken and all this shit and high protein meals. And it's just like easier for me to just piggyback and be like, oh, can you just order me whatever you're getting? And they're like, oh, I got to go to the gym. And I'll be like, oh, shit, I'll just join you, you know? And it's like, it's cheat codes, you know what I mean? Just surround yourself with people that you want to be. And it makes it like 70% easier, in my opinion. It's like, that is the cheat code to life.
I really do agree with what Mr. Beast is saying here, that the people you spend time with can influence you and shape your thoughts and your view in life. And you should choose it wisely. But actually, I didn't learn that through psychiatry and psychology as much as I learned that through spirituality and Christianity. The book of Proverbs, it says this in the King James Version, chapter 12, verse 26. Also, St. Paul mentions it in the New Testament, that he encourages other Christian believers to spend time with Christian believers because it shapes how people act, how people function, how people live day to day. And so Mr. Beast is essentially describing how he chooses his friends selectively, how it influences him, how he influences them, and there's a sort of correlation there.
And I wish, I obviously your audience is definitely a lot older, but you know, to the older people listening, like if you are in a place of mentorship for someone younger or have influence over younger people, you should really try to drill that in their heads. Like, the people they are around 100% dictates the outcome. I would not be on 120 million subscribers if I didn't find, when I was around 1 million, I had a couple friends that were just also psychopaths. You know, I outgrew them, but at the time it was great. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for them. And just all along the way, the friends that I hung out with had such a dramatic impact on where I am. Like I'd probably have 80 million less subscribers, you know, if I wasn't so strategic about hanging out with people that I add value to and they also add value to me.
So the advice for young people would be to be very selective about the people you surround yourself with.
So selective. It's crazy. Like Chris, you know, he's really funny, and that's why he's great for the videos. And part of why he's so funny is he consumes copious amounts of cartoons and just funny content. And so I'll find, like, when I spend more time with Chris, I'll start just quoting these weird cartoons or shows, and like my speech will literally change just after like a week of spending more time with him. It's like that quick of an effect, you know. Now picture that over the course of years. I mean, yeah, it has such a huge influence. Like, pluck one of their friends out and hypothetically put me in there, and you know, there's no doubt if they're trying to become a content creator, their odds of success is 10x, right? Obviously you can't do that, but you got to find your closest version of it.
And just be selective, yeah. But this also applies not just to younger, to older people too.
Agree, but it's even more. When I was a teenager, I just, you know, I couldn't relate to many people. I just thought it was like a fucking freak of nature because no one was obsessed with building businesses or any of this kind of stuff. And so, like, back then, you know, that advice would have been helpful. Maybe not that particularly, but just knowing that there are, you know, it's not that you're a freak of nature. You just haven't found people that have the same interests.
So the task is not to feel sorry for yourself or somehow change yourself. It's more to find
people you fit in with. Yeah, I mean, assuming which, you know, you're not getting confirmation, like, assume it's not something bad, right? Like, if your hobby is shooting things, you know, or shooting things you shouldn't be shooting, you know, don't find people that encourage
that. But outside of that, for sure. Actually, as an answer to what is the best advice someone ever gave you, you said, you're crazy until you're successful, then you're a genius.
100%. All along the way, people gave me so much, you know, advice on why I shouldn't be doing it, why I'm crazy. Every step of the way, people wanted to tell me why I shouldn't be doing this and should get a life, should stop being too obsessed, everything under the planet.
Here, Mr. Beast is talking about all the people that have been sending him messages to not continue his route, not continue his journey. And again, it can affect his psyche, can affect his superego, it can affect his, you know, what's going on in his mind. He really dug deep. He valued his craft, being a YouTuber, and he wanted to make it great. And so he continued with those values. And that's why these core values are so important. Because if you do get mixed messages from other people, if you struggle, if you're thinking about giving up, you really have to dig deep and know what your deeper purpose is to withstand some of these circumstances or obstacles that may go in your way. So I just want to take a moment here to kind of define what success is. It's not money, it's not fame, it's not happiness, but success is being with God, living with godly and right principles. goodness, kindness, gentleness. And Mr. Beast can really demonstrate that in a lot of his videos and a lot of his crafts. I think why he's been so successful at what he's done and why it's been growing so prosperously.
And then once I'm successful, those same people are like, dang, you're a genius. Yeah. Wow, you really pulled that off.
Those are probably the same people that will give you advice now. You're the most successful video creator of all time. Stick to that. Anytime you want to do something new, right?
Yeah.
They'll like pressure you not to do, Feastables or mobile gaming or whatever lays beyond.
Yeah.
It's funny how people don't.
Well, honestly, they're the type of people I just don't talk to anymore.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't even know what they have to say now.
So most people on the team are like, yes, and they're like, whatever the idea you got, they're with it.
No, I mean, it's weird. We actually have my team pushes back on me pretty hardcore.
Oh, they do.
Which I want. I don't want yes men. And they're James, a CEO who helped me build all this. He's very adamant. Like, we're not yes men, and he trains people to really think for themselves. And even when I give them orders, like, really think, like, is this optimal? Is there context or information Jimmy could be missing that I can provide that could help him make a more updated decision? Like, I'm not God, you know what I mean? Like, I'm human and I make errors. And
I think this is such a great point that Mr. Beast makes. It shows his humility, and humility, again, it's not so much a psychological principle, but it's more of a spiritual principle. Through humility, one is really going to learn and grow. Mr. Beast acknowledges that he's human, he makes mistakes, and so he'll learn from others. He has like people around him that can advise him, that can counsel him, and that can help guide him to the direction that he wants to be. And humility is probably the most important part of that process.
So don't take what I say as the Bible.
So even like in the brainstorming and so on, they can push back.
Yeah, you can see it. Like Tyler, anytime I said something, he would give me feedback and push back, which is what I want. I don't want him just to be like, yes, you're a fucking genius. Good job, Jimmy. I don't need that. I need negatives.